Have you ever shared something deeply personal with a man, thinking it would bring you closer only to feel regret or embarrassment afterward? You're not alone. In a world that constantly tells women to be open, vulnerable, and emotionally available, there's an underrated power in holding certain things back. Not because you're hiding who you are, but because not everything needs to be on display. Privacy isn't about secrecy. It's about protection. It's about owning your story, knowing when to speak, and when silence speaks louder. What most women don't realize is that men are wired differently when it comes to emotional information. Some things, once said, can shift how they view you, not always in your favor. It doesn't mean he's bad or manipulative. It just means certain truths hit differently, especially when shared too soon or without intention. This video is about helping you reclaim your emotional leverage. You'll learn how preserving a bit of mystery not only keeps you in control, but also commands more respect and long-term attraction. You'll start seeing privacy not as a wall, but as a boundary that honors your value. So before you bare your entire soul to someone who hasn't earned that level of access, let's talk about the 5 critical things women should never reveal to a man. What you don't say can be just as powerful as what you do, and in some cases, even more. Let's get into it. Let's start with the very first thing you should never share with a man: your deepest insecurities about yourself, especially the ones you haven't fully made peace with yet. We're not talking about healthy vulnerability or sharing emotions in a stable, trusting relationship. We're talking about the raw, unresolved, deeply personal narratives you carry. The ones that stem from trauma, comparison, shame, or fear, and putting them on the table too early or too openly. Here's the truth. When you give someone the blueprint to your emotional weak spots before you fully process them yourself, you risk 2 things. First, you hand over emotional power without knowing if it will be respected. Second, you unconsciously train that person to see you through your wounds instead of beyond them. Men in particular may not know what to do with that kind of information. While a good man might offer compassion, many, especially early in a relationship, will start to frame you around what you've revealed. You say, "I've always struggled with my body." And even if he never says it out loud, he begins to associate you with insecurity, not confidence. You say, "I have trust issues because my ex cheated." And he may now walk on eggshells, or worse, see an opportunity to manipulate that fear. Oversharing insecurities too soon can also disturb the balance of attraction. Whether we like it or not, people are drawn to confidence. That doesn't mean you need to pretend to be perfect, but it does mean you should lead with wholeness, not open wounds. You might think that sharing everything early on builds connection. It doesn't. It builds dependency, emotional debt, and expectations the other person didn't ask for. And when you open up too fast, you often create an unspoken pressure. Now that I've told you this, you owe me understanding. That's not a fair exchange when trust hasn't been fully earned yet. And let's talk timing. Because yes, there is a time and place for deep conversations. But early in dating, or even in a new relationship, you're still figuring out who this man is. Can he handle the weight of your truth? Has he shown emotional maturity? Is he someone who holds space, or someone who keeps score? These are things you learn through observation, not oversharing. This doesn't mean you should bottle everything up, but there's power in discernment. It's okay to say, "I've been through things that shaped me, and I'll share more when it feels right." That's not evasive, that's wise. Instead of laying out your most personal struggles in the first few conversations, show how you live despite them. Let your strength be the story, not your struggle. Let him see your resilience, your confidence, your ability to show up and thrive. That's far more magnetic than "here's everything wrong with me, please love me anyway." The right man will respect your boundaries and earn your story piece by piece. And when you do choose to share, it'll be from a place of power, not desperation. Remember this, your insecurity isn't your identity. It's just a chapter in your story, not the whole book. Don't hand over your most delicate pages to someone who hasn't proven they'll read them with care. You don't owe anyone full access to your inner world, just because you feel chemistry or comfort. Save that for the ones who show consistency, not just curiosity, because when you protect your inner world, you keep your self-worth intact, and that's something no man should ever be allowed to dismantle. Let's talk about one of the biggest mistakes women make when they're trying to build trust with a man: oversharing about their past relationships. You might think you're being honest, transparent, and open-hearted when you reveal all the details of what your ex did, how much it hurt, and how you stayed longer than you should have. Maybe you're trying to show him you've learned from your past, or maybe you just want to be understood. But here's the problem. Men aren't interpreting your story the way you think they are. When you talk about your ex, how he cheated, how he lied, how he took advantage of your kindness, you may be trying to communicate your strength or your growth. But in his mind, a few different things can happen, and none of them serve you. First, you risk being unconsciously compared to your ex. You bring him into the room. You invite your new man to analyze your emotional baggage, even if he doesn't say it out loud. He starts wondering, why did she stay so long? Does she have poor judgment? Is she still emotionally attached to this guy? What if she hasn't healed? These are not the questions you want him asking. Not when you're trying to build something new. Second, when you go into detail about your romantic past, you give him a cheat code. You're showing him exactly what hurt you before, what buttons were pushed, and where your soft spots are. Now, a man with good intentions might tread carefully, but a man with the wrong intentions now knows exactly where the cracks are in your emotional armor. That's dangerous. Third, and this is critical, oversharing about your ex can shift the emotional tone of the relationship. Instead of building new memories and shared energy, you're anchoring the present in the pain of the past. And that's how relationships stall before they even begin. He didn't come into your life to be your therapist. If every deep conversation circles back to what someone else did to you, he'll start feeling like he's in a competition with a ghost, and eventually he'll lose interest. There's a huge difference between being honest and being emotionally naked before someone has earned that level of access. You owe him your truth, but not your history in high definition. Now, this doesn't mean you have to pretend you've never loved, lost, or been hurt. Of course not. We've all been through something. But here's the secret. Leave out the details. You can say, I went through something that taught me a lot about what I want and deserve. That's enough. It communicates maturity without dragging your emotional past into your present story. The longer a man focuses on who hurt you before, the less he's able to focus on who he needs to be for you now. And let's be honest, if he starts unloading his ex drama early on, doesn't that feel like a red flag to you? It feels heavy, messy, and like he's not over it. The same standard applies both ways. Emotional self-control is attractive. So remember this. Your past is not a confession you owe anyone. It's a lesson you live through. It belongs to you, and only you decide what gets shared and when. Let him fall for the woman you are now, not the pain you used to carry. There's power in discretion, elegance in silence, and mystery in saying, I've grown, but the story behind it is mine to tell when the time is right. Because high-value women don't just protect their hearts, they protect their history. Let's talk about one of the most underestimated boundaries in modern dating. Money, specifically, your personal finances. And here's the truth. No matter how close you are, how in love you feel, or how generous the vibe might be, your financial situation is not something a man needs full access to, especially not early on. Now, you might think, well, if we're serious, isn't financial transparency part of building trust? Yes, but that's a long-term conversation. Early in the relationship, and even in some long-term partnerships, revealing too much about your income, debts, savings, or financial habits can shift the dynamic in ways you won't always see coming until it's too late. Let's start with how a man might perceive your financial transparency. If you're doing really well, if you have a great job, investment, savings, and independence, some men will admire it, but others may feel threatened, insecure, or competitive. Whether they admit it or not, a lot of men are still wired to see themselves as providers. And if you're positioned as someone who doesn't need them, they may begin to question their role in your life. Suddenly, your success becomes a silent tension point. On the flip side, if you share that you're struggling financially, whether it's debt, job instability, or past money mistakes, you may think you're being open and relatable. But depending on the man, that can instantly shift how he sees you. He may begin to view you as a burden, or someone who needs saving, or someone who isn't on his level. Even if he doesn't say it out loud, the vibe changes. And sometimes that changes everything. But there's more. Once a man knows your financial habits, how much you make, how you spend, what you've saved, he might start making subtle judgments, or even using that information to manipulate situations. He might say, well, you can afford it, or didn't you say you make more than me? Suddenly, your money becomes ammunition in conversations or justification for imbalanced effort. And that's a red flag. Another danger? Entitlement. If he knows you have money, he might expect you to cover more. Pay for dinners, trips, bills, or help him when he's low. And if you've been raised to be nurturing or generous, it's easy to slide into that role without realizing you're being taken advantage of. The reality is, financial boundaries are just as important as emotional ones. You can love someone and still protect your independence. You can be generous without being exploited. And you can support a partner without surrendering your privacy. So what should you share and when? Here's the golden rule. Share your financial truth only after trust, consistency, and aligned values have been clearly established. Not just words, proof. That means you've seen how he treats money, how he reacts to stress, how he handles responsibility, and whether he respects your independence. Until then, keep it simple. I'm financially stable and I make decisions that align with my goals. That's enough. You don't need to reveal your salary, your credit score, or what's in your account. That's information for serious partnerships, not casual dating or emotionally premature connections. Because once money enters the conversation too early, the relationship starts operating under assumptions, expectations that weren't clearly agreed upon. And that's how resentment grows. Protect your peace, protect your wallet, and most of all, protect the privacy that keeps your power intact. Your money is your business, period. One of the most silent relationship killers, something most women never see coming, is this sharing what your friends think about your man. It sounds harmless. You're venting. You're seeking support. Maybe you're just passing along a comment from your closest friend. But when you let a man know what your friends really think about him, or worse, that you've been discussing your relationship behind his back, you unknowingly plant a seed of doubt, division, and defensiveness that's hard to undo. Think about it. Your man is opening up to you, not to your friend group. When he shares his struggles, when he's vulnerable, when he makes a mistake, he's trusting you with that space. But if he starts to feel like everything he says or does is going to be analyzed, judged, or ridiculed by people he's never even confided in, you break something sacred, emotional safety. Now let's be real. We all need someone to talk to, and your girls are often your sounding board. But there's a difference between seeking wisdom and outsourcing your decisions. When every disagreement, every complaint, every flaw he has is being run through the group chat filter, you're not in a relationship with him. You're in a relationship shaped by external opinions, and that's dangerous. Because here's what happens next. Your friends will start forming their own narratives. Maybe they don't like how he talks, or what he does for a living, or the way he handled a disagreement. And the more you vent, the more ammo they collect. So when you're ready to forgive him, they're still holding on to the worst version of him you described and reminding you why you shouldn't. Now you're torn between your heart and their words. Even worse, when you tell him what your friends have said, you put him in a corner. Maybe you think it'll motivate him to do better. Maybe you think it's harmless. But from his perspective, it feels like betrayal, like he's being judged by people who don't know him. Like his relationship isn't between two people. It's between him and a jury of women he didn't ask to be part of. Men don't forget that kind of exposure. They'll withdraw. They'll get guarded. And sometimes they'll stop showing up emotionally altogether because they no longer trust that their truth is safe with you. Now let's flip the lens. Imagine he was telling his boys everything about you. Every fight, every flaw, every personal detail. And then he told you what they all thought. Would you feel safe? Would you want to open up again? Probably not. Emotional loyalty means knowing what to keep between you and your partner. It means protecting the sacred space of your relationship. Even when you're angry, even when you're unsure, that doesn't mean you suffer in silence or ignore red flags. It means you confide wisely. Choose one trusted, mature voice, not a whole audience, someone who gives grounded advice, not emotional reactions. And most importantly, it means never using your friends' opinions as weapons in an argument. Saying, well, my friends think you're immature, or they all say I can do better, doesn't help you win. It guarantees you both lose. Because even if he forgives you, those words stay burned in his memory. Your relationship is your journey, not a group project. Protect it, respect it. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is keep what your friends say exactly where it belongs, in private. Because love can survive many things, but public scrutiny isn't always one of them. Let's get real for a second. Every woman has insecurities. Whether it's your body, your past, your voice, your laugh, your career, your family, there's something that makes you feel less than on certain days. That's human. That's normal. But here's what's not helping you in love. Wearing those insecurities on your sleeve and serving them up to a man as if they define you. We live in a time where vulnerability is praised, and yes, vulnerability can build intimacy. But there's a fine line between being emotionally open and emotionally exposed. Oversharing your insecurities, especially too soon, doesn't make a man feel closer to you. It makes him see you as unsure of your own worth. And that changes the entire emotional tone of how he relates to you. When you say, I know I'm not that pretty, I'm probably too much for you, or you'll probably leave me like everyone else, what you think you're doing is being relatable or self-aware. What you're actually doing is teaching him how to view you. You're writing the script for how he should treat you. You're silently saying, I don't think I'm enough, so you probably shouldn't either. And that energy, it's repellent. Not because your flaws are unlovable, but because your self-perception becomes his first impression. It's hard to admire someone who constantly signals they don't admire themselves. Now here's the kicker. Most men won't tell you that your oversharing is making them pull away. They'll just fade. They'll get quiet. The chemistry will start to feel forced, and you'll wonder what you did wrong, when in reality all you did was open a door that he wasn't ready or able to walk through. Men want to feel like they're building something with you, not constantly trying to lift you out of emotional quicksand. They want a partner, not a project. When you dump all your unprocessed insecurities on him, you're asking him to fix something that only you have the power to heal. And yes, you deserve someone who holds space for you. Someone who sees your softness and loves you through it. But here's the secret. That kind of love starts with you. You have to show up rooted in your own worth, not hoping someone else will water your confidence for you. You don't need to announce your insecurities for them to be valid. You don't need to pre-apologize for existing. You don't need to reveal every doubt in your head just to prove you're real. Being real means owning your presence, not shrinking from it. If something about yourself makes you uncomfortable, you get to work on it privately or share it in pieces with someone who's earned the right to hear it. Because the more emotionally naked you are with someone who hasn't shown depth, safety, or consistency, the more likely you are to feel exposed, misunderstood, or worse, used. So here's what to do instead. Focus on who you're becoming. Lead with the strength you've built through your journey, not the wounds that still ache. Let your energy say, yes, I've struggled. Yes, I've doubted, but I'm still standing. And I know what I bring to the table. Because the most magnetic thing a woman can ever be is secure in her silence, secure in her value, secure in knowing that she is enough without needing constant reassurance. Oversharing doesn't make you lovable. Self-trust does. Let him fall for your light, not the shadows you haven't made peace with yet. You've made it this far for a reason. Maybe part of you already knew that you've been giving too much of yourself away, too soon, too freely, too openly. Not because you're weak, but because you're human. And because, as women, we're often taught that love means total access. That if you really care, you should open every door, share every secret, and give someone the full map to your soul. But here's what no one tells you. Real love doesn't require you to give away your power. In fact, the right man won't want it. He won't want you to shrink, overshare, or seek his permission to feel valuable. He'll admire the parts of you that remain just out of reach, because mystery invites curiosity and boundaries demand respect. Protecting your power isn't about being guarded or distant. It's about being intentional. It's knowing that your story is sacred. Your emotions, your past, your insecurities, your finances, your friendships, those aren't casual talking points. They're pieces of your identity. And if someone hasn't earned the right to hold them with care, they haven't earned the right to know them at all. You don't need to prove anything to be loved. You don't need to perform emotional gymnastics or hand over pieces of yourself hoping someone will stay. The right person stays because of your energy, your presence, your peace, not because you gave them backstage access to your every flaw. You are allowed to be kind and discerning, soft and self-protective. You can laugh, love, connect deeply and still hold a part of yourself back. Not because you're hiding, but because you're honoring yourself. Your mystery isn't a manipulation tactic. It's the quiet confidence that says, I know who I am and not everyone gets the full version of me. That's not cold, that's powerful. And ironically, it's that energy that draws in a partner who's worthy of knowing more. Because when a woman knows her value, she doesn't need to overshare to keep someone interested. She doesn't rush to give away her story. She lets it unfold, page by page, to someone who's proven they'll treat every word with respect. Protecting your power is about knowing the difference between openness and vulnerability, between sharing to build connection and bleeding out in hopes of being rescued. It's about recognizing that silence can speak just as loudly as confession, and that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is simply say nothing at all. So take a moment. Think about what you've been sharing. Think about who's been getting pieces of you they didn't earn, and ask yourself, what have those conversations cost you? Your peace, your confidence, your emotional leverage. It's never too late to take your power back. You don't owe anyone a minute excess. You don't need to explain your boundaries. And you don't need to apologize for keeping sacred things sacred. You are the prize. Your presence is enough. And your power, it's not in how much you give, it's in what you choose to protect. So as this video ends, make a choice, not to close off, but to close ranks. Tighten your circle, sharpen your standards, hold your truth like the crown it is. Let them earn the right to know you, because you are worth that level of respect. And from this moment forward, you don't hand over your power, you wear it.